boys and girls. It's Miss Gina back again. I know it's been a few days since Easter, but I wanted to share the rest of the story with you. I thought we'd review our book one more time, and then we'll read about the things that happened following that first Easter morning. So let's look at our story of Easter book one more time. Here we go. We'll remember that in the beginning, Jesus rode in on a donkey to Jerusalem, and people believed he was going to be the king that saved them. Jesus had a special supper with his disciples and asked them to remember him every time they ate bread and they drank juice. Jesus went to the garden to pray. He knew things were going to be tough, and he prayed for God's help. And he brought some of his friends along who had trouble staying awake. Then Jesus was arrested, and Judas, one of his friends, had turned him in to the soldiers, and they arrested him, and his friends were scared. Jesus went to a type of court where a man named Pilate questioned him and asked him if he considered himself a king. Well, Pilate finally decided. At first he thought, this man hasn't done anything wrong. But the people weren't happy with that, so this man decided that Jesus would have to be crucified on a cross like a criminal. So Jesus was hung on a cross with criminals on each side of him, and he was nailed to that cross where he died, and his friends were very sad. At the same time, while Jesus was on that cross, in the temple where the priests were, the temple was like a church at the time, there was a curtain hanging between the place where only the priests could go and regular people couldn't go back there. The priests thought they were the only ones that could be close to God. But at noon on that day that Jesus hung on the cross, everything got dark. And then all of a sudden, when Jesus died, the curtain ripped in half, and the earth shook like an earthquake. Then even people in the temple started to believe that this man Jesus really was the Son of God. Then they laid Jesus' body in a tomb. That's how they buried them. They took him into a tomb where a friend had this place, and they rolled a big stone across it. But then on Easter morning, some of Jesus' friends, these ladies, went to the tomb. They were going to put some sweet-smelling spices around. And the stone was rolled away, and there was an angel sitting there, and the angel told them that Jesus was no longer in the tomb. Jesus was not dead anymore. Jesus was alive. So the ladies ran to tell the rest of the disciples. The angel told them not to be afraid, and they decided they were happy, and they ran to tell all of their friends that Jesus was alive. Now, that was hard for some of the friends to believe, but boy, they wanted to believe it. Now the rest of the story. Jesus appears to a room full of his friends. One night, Jesus appeared in a room where many of his friends were gathered. He told them to tell their family and friends and neighbors, and even strangers, that he is alive. He told them to share everything that he had taught them. They were to tell the people in Jerusalem first, but then they were to tell people everywhere. Jesus told them to wait in Jerusalem until God sent them a special gift of power from heaven. Because, see, Jesus wouldn't be able to stay right here with them in this form. So Jesus led his friends a little way out of town, and Jesus prayed for his friends. And while he was praying, he started to rise up into heaven. And then a cloud hid him from his friends. As everyone was standing there, staring up into heaven, two angels appeared beside them and said, Jesus has been taken away from you and into heaven. He will come back in the clouds just like he went away. So Jesus went to live in heaven, where many of our loved ones go after they die from here on earth. Then they get to live with Jesus in heaven. But Jesus, here's some other pictures of the story. Because of Jesus being here and Jesus being raised from the dead, God sent his special gift called the Holy Spirit to be with every one of us. So Jesus isn't really gone. Jesus is really here, right with all of us, right here in our hearts. And Jesus wants us to tell people about him by loving others, by taking care of others, by being kind, and by telling them what we know about Jesus. And the Easter story, the most exciting thing is to remember, no matter how bad things get, that God can win over everything, that God will always be with us through the Holy Spirit. And even death is not the end of the story, because death just means the end of life here on earth. But then we get to spend eternity with Jesus in heaven. But while we're waiting for that time, Jesus gave us a job to do, and he wants us to share his love with everyone around us, every single person. So that's my challenge to you, boys and girls. No matter what you do, I want you to find a way to love the people around you, and that will make God so very happy.